Shabbat Shalom, Chavrei. I think congregations of mine in the past, and possibly even members of Beit Virtuali, have gotten a little tired of me harping on the fact, I used the word fact there, that God has no human attributes, right? Within Judaism, this has been a bedrock principle for the last 1,000 years, since Maimonides said in his the third of his 13 principles, I believe with absolute and complete conviction that the Holy Creator has no human attributes nor anything that can be compared to anything human, which is one of the reasons that the class that I'm giving this weekend and next weekend, so 2 Sundays in a row, is called From Bearded Dude in the Sky to Universal I, that pathway from seeing God as essentially an extension of humanity to going beyond that. And that's going to be the first class, including looking at artwork and that pathway that we took in Judaism. And then the second class is going to be dealing more with, well, how do we then pray within that system? How do we pray to nothing, as it were? Now, it's great timing. One of the members of Beit Virtuali sent me a link to, and I'm not going to, you can search for it yourself. I'm not going to send a link or anything. It was wonderful, and thank you for sending that. That was the compilation of people all over the world saying what God looks like. It's so much like a police sketch artist, right? Which God did the crime? Well, this is what he looks like, and I'm sorry, it's a he, and that's one of the many things that is just so wrong about this, because if you take Judaism, which is not a very large religion, 0.2% of the world population, but then if you take Christianity and Islam, which is a massive amount of the world population, well, Judaism and Christianity share the verse from Tisa this week, that no one can see my face and live. So which part of that verse didn't we understand? That maybe searching after God's face might not be the best thing in the world to do. And I'm just laughing because we're not alone in this one. I mean, obviously within Islam, there are absolute prescriptions against certain sorts of descriptions, and how much more so do you think that would be of Allah? And then even when you move into Eastern, more quasi-philosophical religious systems, like within Buddhism and within Taoism, we have statements in Taoism such as, the moment that you can describe the universal Tao, it is no longer the universal Tao. Or within Buddhism, much more direct, if you see the Buddha, kill the Buddha. The entire idea is, as soon as we try to ascribe features, as soon as we try to see what God looks like, well, what we've done is put God in a box. We've made God into something, instead of a concept or that unifying principle of the universe, into something that we can understand, that's understandable, and can control. And that's the entire issue. We want to have some control over our lives, and the illusion that we can visualize God is part of the illusion that we can control our lives, which we can't. Our lives work exactly as they should until they don't, right? All of our tools function until they no longer do. Our life makes sense until it doesn't. And the second that it doesn't, we want to cry out to a God that makes sense to us. It's going to react to us, be in dialogue with us in a very human way. And this is so ancient and so old. And this is how we evolved to understand religions. When I originally planned the sermon, I was going to go through really the history of how we understood religions from atavistic spiritual concepts up through fully anthropomorphized gods until we get to today. If you're curious about that, then just let me know and I'll put that in our next podcast. But the fact that this article exists and people participated and people came up with a human male even. The features are gentled out. So obviously there were people who contributed to this police sketch artist, not looking from a strictly masculine standpoint, but it's still there. And it shows that for however long our religious traditions have tried to say, hold up on that so many of us still somehow have never gotten past God looking just like us. And you can see how much Judaism has wrestled with it. Now, I don't think that the story that's happening in Tisa is meant to reflect history in the way that we might have a camera that captures something on film and it's shown in a documentary. I think that it's a metaphorical or mythological history that contains within it archetypal truths. But truth it is indeed, and we see it so much in this discussion between Moshe and between the eternal that starts at the beginning of the third triennial cycle. So this is in Exodus chapter 33, starting at verse 12, and just read through the entire thing. We have some incredibly famous quotes in here, including, "No one can see my face and live." And then Moses is in this discussion with the eternal saying, all right, I've bought into this. Now I need to know a little bit about you. So tell me what your qualities are. And yeah. Since you've convinced me and found favor in me, then make sure, because I don't think any of these people are going to follow me, right? You know how crazy my relatives are. You need to come out and show yourself, and you need to be present, and you need to go in front of us and lead us. And I can just imagine if God was a human, God doing something like that. Like, Moses, you just haven't gotten it. You asked my name, and I said, I don't have a name. I am all of existence. Yea, asher, yea. I am simply that which I am. Now, Moses has just continued it. And why? Because Moses is an idiot? No. Because this is all anyone's ever known. Within the Canaanite system, out of which Judaism eventually evolved, we started off with Baals, with different gods that were masters of certain parts of reality. So you had the Baal Shammai, the master of the skies. You would have a Baal who would be the master of a certain mountain. And every god had their domain of influence, which is why you have Moses sitting there saying, essentially, please tell me your name, because that will tell me your domain of influence. Okay, you got me on that one. You didn't give me that information, even though God had said my domain of influence is all of existence. Okay, but Moses continues on. All right, if you can't tell me your name, then tell me what your ways are. What is your derech? What is your path? In other words, it's asking the exact same question. And once again, I'm imagining a faceplant being there. And finally, the dialogue goes once again, pretty much in the same direction as the, all right, my name's Yeh Asher Yeh. Another thing that is supposed to convince us thousands of years ago to stop thinking of God as a human being. And this time we get, all right, no one can see my face and live. So Moses, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Again, I'm speaking. I'm imagining this is Moses in a deep meditation state with universal wisdom coming to him, right? Or in a dream state or something like that. But either way, we can't understand that so well. That has to be projected and portrayed in words that we can understand. Dibra, Torah, Galashon B'nai Adam. Torah speaks to us in human language. So in the human language of Torah, we have, all right, since no one can see my face and live, translation, if anyone saw reality as reality was, not as we want it to be, then we would cease to be as we are. Sometimes that might be a good thing. But then continuing on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in front of you, all right? So you hide in this little bit of the rock here, this little cleft in the rocks, and I'm going to pass by, and you're not going to be able to see me, right? Because anyone who sees my face will die. Anyone who sees the fullness of all reality will not exist as they do now. And instead, I'm going to show you my back. Now, again, if God doesn't have human features, this is a metaphor. And now here's the beauty. Here's the point that brings it all together. You can't see me, but you'll see where I've gone. I'm going to let my glory pass before you, and you're going to see where I have been. So maybe it's not completely clear yet, and I've been struggling with this one as I've been working on this sermon. I've actually done some practical things, and I want to share that, and maybe we can come with a way of understanding that. You see, we're still dealing with human language, anthropomorphic language, God being portrayed as human-like. Again, it's the best we can do with the language that what we have. There's a great scene, or there's a great passage in Lawrence Kushner's God Was in This Place, and I'm just going to paraphrase this, where essentially Lawrence Kushner's dealing with this idea of God doesn't have hands, as it were. And it's in the question of evil, the question of how could God do such a thing, which is a question I've heard so many times. It's a question that you'd ask of a human, but not of all of existence. Why is existence so? It's a very different question than why did you do that? Why did he or she or they do that? And Lawrence Kushner is specifically talking about the Holocaust and saying, as he gets to the end, it's not that God died in the Holocaust. Just this idea from the book of Deuteronomy of a God that reaches through and rewards and punishes and reaches through with human-like hands and messes around with history. That's a metaphor. And that concept is something that can't stand up within the horrors of the Holocaust. We've had to change our theology, and those who didn't change the theology have basically said, well, I reject a God that would do that. Which, again, look what we're doing when we say such things. And he makes the comment, well, what are God's hands? Well, it's our hands. Meaning, if you look at a community that is acting under the ethical principles of Judaism, Those are the big three right here. Let's just keep on throwing them out. Love your neighbor as yourself. The stranger in your midst you shall love as yourself, because you were once strangers of Egypt, and that which is reprehensible to you, do not do to anyone else. If you have a community that is acting with that being their primary way of interacting with the universe, then you see what the hands of that community do over the course of a year, and you will see what it looks like to have God passed by, what it means to have God's glory to have passed in front of us. It's hard to do as human beings because we don't objectively look at what we've done. We have a completely subjective view of our own lives. We're the center hero of our own personal narratives. But we do, for those of us who use social media on a regular basis, we have a very painful way that we can explore this. If these hands, all of ours, hold your hands up right now. Here it is. These are the tools that the eternal, that the universe has to work with for us to make the world better. And if that's the case, these are also the hands that thumb or type everything that we say in social media, which I think a lot of us, with all the memes that we post and the talking about the things that we talk about, and the bad politicians, the good ideas and the bad ideas, and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and how to survive toxic people, and whatever the case may be, I think that we are engaging in that sort of ethical behavior. And so if that's the case, let's test it. Look through, and it just can't be the memes that we posted, although I think that's worth looking at as well. But look at all the comments we've made, whatever social media we use, the comments we've made on other people's pages, the comments that we have made as we've been in discussions. And what would we say has passed by in the last year or so? Would we look at all of our comments and say it is clear that that is what it looks like when the eternal has passed by? Are we seeing tiferet? Are we seeing glory? Are we seeing beauty? And the answer, unless we have very minimal contact with social media, or unless we only post cat videos, which I think is a pretty holy and elevating sort of thing to do, unless that's the case, then we have said something that was not the glory of the eternal passing by. We have said something, and I know that this is the case because Moloch, the algorithm, has led us to this. We read stuff that upsets us and we comment in that way. If someone disagrees with us, we tear them down. And this is the other thing that I've been harping on over and over again for years and years. And as I went through it, as I went through several of my feeds to look at, would it look like I'm not trying to be arrogant because the answer of course is no, but did it look like the glory of God passed through? And if that became a test, there were some things I posted that were elevating. Baruch Hashem. There were some things that I posted that were funny and neutral, and that's fine, because if we laugh, I think that's elevation as well. And there were some things I posted I should not have posted. There are things I said I should not have said, or there are things I should not have said in the way that I said them. Why? Because I'm human, and I'm not a perfect reflection of the glory of the eternal. But if we actually want to understand what our tradition is saying and do something about it, well, I've already sent off 2 emails today to apologize to 2 individuals that I spoke with in a way that I shouldn't. If our religion doesn't bring us to actually working to repair the world around us, and just posting how everyone else is wrong and we're right is not repairing the world. Just posting how we've overcome everything bad and everyone else is still stinking at being able to be a full human being, then we are not helping anyone. If we are in an honest dialogue with relationships in the process of repairing them, we are a part of that elevation and the glory of the eternal. If we are purely tribal, and I will not have a conversation with someone that disagrees with me other than to tell them they're wrong, that is not the glory of the eternal. That is not acting upon a maxim which we can will to be universal law. In other words, that is not treating someone the way that we would want to be treated. And it's really easy to just read something and say, if someone posted that, and I was on the other end, how would I feel? It's the most practical way that we can actually look at where the eternal has passed by and what sort of God have we manifested in the world that has passed by. So I'm spending a lot more time online than I used to because beitvirtuali is beitvirtuali, which means that I already know that this is a place where I'm going to fall. Why? Because I'm a human being. Because I get upset, because there are times that I have thin skin. There are times that I want to vanquish my enemy. I know that you're in the same boat that I am because we're humans and we have the same algorithms that are working against us. This is what we have to add to our cycle of how we read Torah, with all the other wisdom that we gain from our tradition, the wisdom that's telling us to actually look at the pathway of the eternal as the eternal is manifested in our lives. It is something I think we need to take a little bit more seriously. I know I do. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll see you next time. Shalom.